Seriously? Fucking Tramer.
Get me a doctor, now!
I met this 6-year-old child with this blank, pale, emotionless face and the blackest eyes the devil's eyes.
What's the boogeyman?
As a matter of fact, it was.
Ooh. Oh. Cool. Ooh, cool. Ooh. Oh my God, that looks so cool. Wow, this looks like a lot of fun. No time for that. Halloween 4, 5, and a whole bunch. So originally I was going to do individual reviews for Halloween 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. But two things happened. First off, I fell way behind on these reviews on account of the whole My Son Turned 2 this month thing. And second, hoo boy, I forgot how much I really just don't care about these films. And if you've watched a lot of my content, another two things, you should definitely subscribe. And maybe join my sick as fuck Patreon, links down below. But also, you know I don't shit on a lot of movies because it just doesn't interest me. Okay, that was a special case. So I decided to say screw it and just take a one video dive through what I consider to be the dark years of the Halloween franchise, a turbulent period that lasted from 1988 to 2002. Although there is an argument that it lasted longer than that, but that's next video.
Here I come, boogeyman.
Anyway, let's dig right in.
I saw it clear as breasts and blue suede shoes.
So Halloween 4, which, by the way, it's, you know, it's the same as the rest. It looks amazing as far as the actual transfer goes. The cover art kind of blows, but also we get the original cover art, and there's not really much in the way of new extras, but we do get a bunch of old extras. So yeah, that's that.
Come on.
Honestly, the Dark Years did start off fairly promising. There was a chance that we could see a solid, exciting take on the shape 6 years after the franchise had seemingly sputtered and died with Halloween 3. A reminder that when it comes to quality, box office numbers and knee-jerk fuckfaces don't mean shit. Halloween 4, the return of Michael Myers right out the gate with that title, wants the audience to feel comfortable in their knowledge that their favorite emotionless killing machine is back, baby. And really, that's what Halloween 4 is. It's comfortable. It's a film that asks itself, how easy can we make this whole process of rejuvenating a franchise started a decade ago? Oh, we have to explain how Michael Myers survived that explosion, after which we clearly saw his face burning right the fuck off? Yeah, he's a little burned, I guess. Who gives a shit? Oh, we can afford Donald Pleasance? Well, Loomis definitely died from that explosion. Yeah, he's burned a little, I guess. How about Jamie Lee Curtis? Can we get her back? What's that? She said, fuck yourself? I guess Laurie died in a car accident off screen and has a daughter named, Jamie, I guess? Awesome.
Your mother used to babysit me when I was your age.
Can we burn her a little? With those changes in place, the story is basically just beat for beat Halloween with a kiddo and a little extra traditional catharsis with the pinch of the 80s. The opening is corny as fuck, and you know what? Good on Raymond O'Connor as Jones for playing this exposition dumpster. Same for these two, and good on you, mister, for taking that thumb like a champ, all in the interest of catching the audience up as economically as possible. Just good stuff, guys. From that point on, and actually, now that I'm thinking about it, during it as well, Halloween 4 is mostly a retread. Instead of finding the remains of a single tow truck driver, well, I just realized I don't have my, where's my, Ugh. I have to add a little reflector because I have a hooded brow. I look like a fucking caveman. There we go, that's better. Instead of finding the remains of a single truck driver, well, we'll find a whole service station slaughtered. And instead of his car being stolen, we'll subvert expectations. Michael will steal a tow truck and blow up Loomis's car. Brilliant! We'll get Loomis a new sheriff to hang out with, too. He's gonna need that. And this time, Loomis will be in favor of getting the word out, but lines are down. We'll also add in some poorly written bullies. Maybe they could accept Jamie as one of them, make him a little three-dimensional or whatever. And we'll get our horny girl in there somewhere, but maybe make her the cop's daughter this time, yeah. Maybe, can we work in a dead dog? Yada yada yada, you get it. Someone had notes after a Halloween screening, and buddy, they were going to apply them. It's not as one-to-one as I'm making out, but it's close enough to feel like a retread. Which isn't a problem, by the way. You could basically redo any slasher formula again and again and be fine. Nah, as much as I'm joshing with the flick, its writing is really not the problem. It's nothing inspired, but it's got a great pace, and the addition of a town mob is actually an enjoyable expansion on a somewhat similar element seen briefly in Halloween 2, and if we're being honest, it's the best use of a mob in these movies. Something evil dies tonight. One big problem, why would you ditch the 239:1 aspect ratio? Like seriously, up to this point, Halloween looked classy as fuck, and you just strip it down to 185 for what? To be easier to crop for video? Get the fuck out of here. The lack of Dean Cundy on DP duty is pretty apparent, even if this is a perfectly competent production. Peter Lyons, is it Lyons or Lyons? Lyons? Lyons. I'm gonna say Lyons. Peter Lyons Collister isn't a terrible cinematographer, but shockingly, the guy behind the camera on Alvin and the Chipmunks and The Master of Disguise is no Dean Cundy. Although I guess Cundy has tried to match him on that in recent years. Okay, that's mean. Collister has plenty of solid credits, including a few Michael Bay movies, even serving as second unit director on Bad Boys. He's the kind of DP who adapts to the director he's given, and I guess Dwight H. Little might be the actual problem. Who knows? None of this is to say they are bad at what they do, it's just you can tell this isn't the A-Team anymore. We do get a few bangers. Obviously, this shot of Michael is super rad. The Myers in the house reveal is a fun callback. The decimated police station is cool, I guess. And the finale is really well shot, but none of it is a match for the Dean of Darkness, man. Jamie Lloyd is actually a pretty inspired idea in so much as being a desperate strain to connect us back to the sister angle. If the first movie was about a killer terrorizing babysitters, why not have that same killer go after a little girl who has to be saved by her babysitter? It's a good enough idea that produces a good enough script that does some workhorsing up front to get us right into the story. Now, speaking of Jamie, you know, I like Danielle Harris a lot, but she's a child actor in a horror movie. Just like these little fuckheads who make her seem like stunted Meryl Streep by comparison. These things are rarely brilliant, and she's pretty much par for the course. That said, she does give the Halloween series one of its best and most iconic endings, which I don't think would be as effective if she wasn't so inherently likable. On the other hand, Rachel is incredibly likable as well, and has the added benefit of being portrayed by Ellie Cornell. She actually makes Halloween 4 stand out far more than it should. Loomis, meanwhile, is even more batshit than ever. Well, I say than ever. He'll get more batshit, but up to this point. It's interesting just how wild the character has gotten to this point. In the first film, he's pretty contained, all said and done, but with a bit of a hair trigger when it comes to old Mikey. In the second film, he's much more unhinged, and here...
They've survived this ordeal. They'll survive its memory.
Dude's already a caricature. It's not bad per se. In fact, he's one of the most entertaining aspects of Halloween 4, but you can see where the seams are showing in the series' direction.
God damn you.
By the way, what exactly is Loomis thinking when he sees 3 Michael Myers impersonators? It's one of those scenes that I want to know what the fuck is going through his head right there, because it's fucking hilarious.
Dear God.
Anyway, as far as the shape of the shape goes, we don't get the worst of the series, but thanks to the curious decision to keep the mask's eyebrows and George Wilbur's posture, he just kind of looks surprised all the time. He's also got 3 looks: normal, bandaged, and Sting. By the by, whoever decided that he needed fabric to block his eyes deserves more than a few lashings. What a fucking tacky idea. And made worse by the fact that despite his faults, the DP lights him like a fucking champ. It's one of the best things that he does, is lighting Michael Myers, and they still have those... Oh, God. Oh, this frustrates me. Not much else to say here. Myers infiltrating the sheriff's house, the school sequence, and the ensuing car chase are pretty fun, complete with an inspiring shotgun death and just plain quality child endangerment, but it never rises to the heights of plenty of other great slasher flicks. Even Alan Howarth's music, outside of the recycled theme, is very good, but when you're dealing with a franchise built upon one of the greatest horror soundtracks of all time, shit, man, it just feels like a mighty big downgrade. End of the day, Halloween 4 is... it's good enough. And that's okay.
I prayed that he would burn in hell, but in my heart, I knew that hell would not have him.
So here's a head scratcher. Why did all of the Halloween films between 2 and 2018 just ditch the Pumpkin Dolly credits? Like, what's the deal, man? Come on. Halloween 5 is... it's fine. Robert Draper, who would go on to be the DP on Tales from the Dark Side, the movie, the year after Halloween 5, took over the cinematography reins, and while he's not some massive improvement, there is a bit more life to his shots, more contrasty lighting, more naturalistic daytime interiors, a rock and gothic job on the Myers house, weird points of view, that sort of thing. Of course, he's also sort of a working man's DP, not unlike his predecessor, so like how 4's often bland feel is more so probably on Dwight Little, here the more dynamic feel is probably more to do with Swiss director Dominic Othenin-Girard. Othenin-Girard? I don't know. And heck, together, he and Draper put together some of the best shots in the pre-millennium post-Cundy years. They do great work in both the barn and Myers house sequences, truly some just stellar shots and suspenseful, child-endangering moments. Unfortunately, he and the producers seem to have just whole other problems of their own, weighing down those positives. The biggest issue with Halloween 5, besides the weird-ass Nicolas Cage mask, is the script. And it makes sense that it would be, because it's a thrown-together mess. They immediately renege on the possessed Jamie concept, which might be fine, but then they make her mute and double down on the psychic connection, give her a cute disabled friend, and have her doing her worst Christopher Walken in the Dead Zone impression. There's also the wacky cops, making Loomis even more batshit fucknuts and abusive, that fucking tear, the introduction of the Man in Black, and the cult of dipshittery, that bullshit cliffhanger, the lack of a proper protagonist, the whole clinic, everything. And actually, back to Loomis, Oh, my dear Loomis.
Get the little girl, then you're home and safe.
On the one hand, his antics do reach a point of absurdity that it kind of becomes a positive in the sea of meh. There are other minor eccentricities that prove beneficial to the late night crowd, but crazy-ass Loomis practically trying to kill Jamie is some next-level stuff. On the other hand, it's really fucking dumb, in service of a plot that is already making very little sense and mucking up any goodwill that might have come from Part 4. Also, I guess he dies again, which, if this were the last we saw of him, might actually work, but it is stained by what will come next. Speaking of death, the death of Rachel is a weird one for me. On the one hand, it's essentially our dear director's Psycho moment, but with how likable the character is, it winds up feeling like the wrong kind of loss. Plus, we're immediately given a replacement in Tina, who is actually a really fun character, but innately not as likable as Rachel. She's a bit ditzy and annoying, and I have no idea why she would go along with this prank on the Keystone Cops, but she gets a proper arc, ultimately sacrificing herself to protect Jamie, that I probably appreciate more than most Halloween fans. When she dies, it does feel somewhat earned, but Rachel in her place would have been a dozen times more powerful, so I don't know, lesson for all you writers out there. Stop trying to pay homage to Psycho. No one fucking wants that. Her conversation with Jamie about future people she would meet feels extra depressing with what would come next. Not a criticism or anything, just something I thought of on this rewatch. Also, I love the Brute mask, best part of the movie, which, that's sad. Actually, you know what? The barn scene is a really good sequence. The geography makes fuck all sense, but it's a solid bit of thrills and stabby stab. By the way, once you see this chest prosthetic, you never unsee it. Oh, fuck. Actually, you know what? The Myers house. That's the best. It has fucknut Loomis and outrageous gothic lighting. Gotta love that. Ultimately, Halloween 5 feels like the ultimate also-ran. It's not nearly as focused or fast-paced as its predecessor, or as offensively inept as what would come next. It does flirt with quality. As I mentioned, the barn and Myers house stuff is really good, and I do like Tina, God help me, but it's not enough. The fact it's so closely tied to what would come next only makes the big cliffhanger all the more intolerable.
Power of the runes stopped him.
How did we get here? Seriously, what the fuck? So here's the dealio with Halloween 6. I already knew before this rewatch that I would dislike it either way, so I went ahead and I watched the producer's cut. I could have watched the theatrical, but you know what? Fuck it.
Win.
What a fucking train wreck. Also, no matter what cut you choose, these scenes were written and shot. Someone seriously thought, oh yeah, Michael Myers should impregnate his niece and then murder her. The same character played previously by Danielle Harris, who at this point would be 15 years old. Woof. Who could have possibly overseen this and thought that was a good idea? So yeah, right off the bat, we just have a mean-spirited, gross film, a long way from its fairly classy roots. We're then given a shithead dad character, a new kiddo to endanger, and a whole lot of TV-grade cinematography. Like the last two, it's nothing terribly amateurish or anything, but easily the least visually interesting of the three. DP Bill Dixon and director Joe Chappelle would go on to lots of TV work, which definitely tracks. Also there's Paul Rudd being a QAnon prototype. The fuck you doing in that window, bro? Seriously, I know it's a joke that Paul Rudd is in this, but he's legitimately terrible at it.
I was only 8 years old when I saw him, but I was one of the lucky ones.
Thank whatever the fuck for Clueless. Anyway, how do I best describe Halloween 6? Well, it made me yearn for Halloween 5, so that's a positive for Halloween 5. Actually, no joke, after rewatching 6, I legit reconsidered everything I wrote down against the previous two. For positives, there's definitely a mood to the film, and like the other two, it gets a lot of the fall setting right that many others in the franchise lack, thanks to all three being shot in Salt Lake City instead of LA. The discovery of Barry Sims' body is memorable. The mask is the best since part 2. Having Miss Blankenship be in on the cult stuff is, well, it's kind of nifty when you don't think about her dressing up as a fucking discount Time Lord, and, yeah, that's all I got. Halloween 6 sucks.
Ah!
pointless. It's a pointless, sucky movie. I'm sorry, this is going to have to be the shortest of my takes on the Halloween series. I don't really want to talk about it. The history behind the film is fun stuff. The sheer lunacy of the premise is interesting. And why the fuck did they burn the thorn symbol into the hay bale? Why am I asking questions? It's a piece of shit with Paul Rudd. I guess it's always fun to ask what cut you prefer of any out there bullshit movie, but when it's this sleep-inducing and bereft of artistic integrity, what's the fucking point? The only thing keeping it in any sort of discussion is the name Halloween and the fact it technically features Michael Myers, whose role honestly just feels incidental to the Thorn crap. Dude's a glorified henchman in this. He's more a rapist than an actual antagonist. You could give this piece of shit the Vinegar Syndrome treatment and it'd still be borderline worthless.
I think it's cool.
No one fucking asked you, Tim! Alright, so. Fucking Halloween H2O, 20 years later. A film I assume people love because it's nowhere near as bad as its dipshit title. And you know what? I guess it's also like an actual movie, so that's already a step up from its predecessor. Yes, sir, as you may have already figured out, I am not a fan of H2O, aka the one that had the whole schoolyard asking, wait a sec, he has water powers now? There are several pros here. First off, that beautiful 239:1 aspect ratio is back, baby. Well, actually, it was released on Blue in 234:1, but whatever, close enough. And with it comes some very late 90s, but nonetheless fairly dynamic cinematography, including a shitload of Steadicam from Darren Okada, who had cut his teeth on Phantasm 2 and would go on to shoot Lake Placid in 1999. Gone is the cheap handheld look from the previous 3 films, and lighting and composition look, well, professional. I wouldn't call any of this next level stuff, or even up to the level of Dean Cundy's work, but it's good. Basically on the same level of, well, Scream. Actually, no, it's not. That's not fair. Scream is better looking than this film, but it's a similar aesthetic. And you know what? With producing duties from Kevin Williamson and what I can only assume was a green light based on Scream's success, any resemblance certainly would make sense. Nabbing Friday the 13th Part 2's very own Steve Miner for directing duties is a total coup. Dude also directed Friday the 13th Part 3, House, and Warlock, so his horror bona fides were cemented in genre history. So why is this one so not my thing? Well, it's hard to say what the reason is exactly. All the elements are there for a success story. We have some pretty fun directorial choices, like the ghostly journey through the school early on for a little exposition, the return of Jamie Lee Curtis to the role of Laurie Strode, Michael Myers minus the old thorn in his paw, and plenty of young up-and-comers like Josh Hartnett, Michelle Williams, and like 3 minutes of Joseph Gordon-Levitt. Plus, the plot is extremely simple, just how I like it. Laurie Strode faked her death, moved to California, and became a teacher at a private school, had a son, and now Michael Myers is randomly back, and thanks to some files in the archives of a special cameo appearance, he's found her and is looking for some payback. Wham bam, thank you ma'am, that's a pretty fucking good plot. Obviously, I still don't like the sister twist and junk, but hey, you gotta take movies on their own terms, and I am more than happy to just enjoy me a slasher flick. With a premise as simple as this, plus that directorial talent, it's gotta be good. Right? No, it doesn't.
We should try to get on with some attempt at a happy existence, Mom.
Props where props are due. It's definitely a professional production, and I totally get people's love for it. Laurie Strode's PTSD is handled exceptionally well for the most part, and I think in these moments, especially with Josh Hartnett and her boy toy, H2O really triumphs. That said, it's really not for me. Most of it looks and feels like an expensive TV movie. The few and far between kills are mostly pretty lame, and the shape, while shot very well at times, is done a huge disservice by the initial K&B mask, which was notoriously replaced in reshoots, as well as this horrific CGI bullshit, and his cruel streak really isn't presented at all. He's just another slasher killer this time around, albeit one who represents a lot to our protagonist. Another potential reason for the bland nature of Halloween H2O is the writing. See, Kevin Williamson, while he did have his name all over this back in the day, isn't actually the writer. I'm not sure that would have really been a boon for a Halloween sequel, but it can't be said the man doesn't love the genre. Instead, we get a script by Robert Zappia and Matt Greenberg, 2 guys with plenty of talent but little horror cred at this point in their careers. I'm not sure why they were chosen, presumably they worked well with Dimension, but the combo of what feels like a script just hitting its necessary beats and executive notes, and the aforementioned TV movie look, plus a pretty uninteresting production design, I think it just all kinda winds up a mush of late 90s stagnation. It's a post-Scream slasher more interested in making money on that crowd than making a great Halloween sequel. But hey, LL Cool J's wannabe writer subplot is pretty great, and the whole film minus credits is an hour and 20 minutes, so, you know, at least it doesn't drag. And honestly, we don't get a bad shot of Michael Myers until like 58 minutes in. I mean, it's the CGI mask, so it's a pretty big anti-reveal, but still, a lot of shots like Michael watching Rodney on the phone or Laurie's, vision of the shape approaching her at the school are actually really good. Heck, right after Charlie's dispatched by Pixar's Mikey Myers, we get a legit really good kill sequence complete with some proper, none too shabby lighting on the mask. I mean, sometimes. And shit, just look at this corpse reveal. More of this sadism, please. Halloween H2O is thoroughly fine. I think some little touch-ups might have helped a lot, a little extra violence, more stark lighting, and, you know, maybe a mask that doesn't look like Satan's asshole every other shot.
Trick or treat, motherfucker.
So H2O ends on, frankly, an absolute banger of a scene. Laurie Strode finally gets to kill Michael Myers, and does so in the most final way we've seen so far. Unfortunately, certain producers wanted their sequel options on the table, and at the same time it was shot, they filmed an alternate sequence wherein it turns out Myers pulled a switcheroo with a paramedic, meaning Laurie's big, epic win and potential happily-ish ever after is bullshit. She beheads an innocent man, winds up in a loony bin, and is killed by Michael in the opening of what many consider to be the worst film of the franchise. So, womp womp, I guess. But hey, is Resurrection as bad as people say? I mean, it ain't great. H24 here actually has a good initial idea to detach the series from the Strode storyline and give Myers some new peeps to murderize. Totally cool as a first step in whatever cursed board meeting this script started out in. We're not given much of an explanation on what Michael's been up to, but at some point he got himself a new mask, which I gotta say, I know it's meant to be closer to the OG, but I think I prefer H2O's frizzy-haired Stan Winston reshoot mask. That said, it's not the worst, save for what sometimes passes for a Jufro in the right lighting, and those fucking eyebrows. I'm not sure why so many mask makers couldn't figure out that the white eyebrows were a big part of what made the original mask work, but here we are. It's adequate, and stuntman Brad Loree does a good job in the role. It almost feels like hiring Rick Rosenthal to direct was a way of getting around any criticisms the producers might have faced regarding this being the obvious cash-in that it is. It's continuing in the late 90s, early aughts style of just being another fucking slasher movie. Which, again, could be fine. That by itself isn't really a problem when you're dealing with the living embodiment of evil as your villain. Even the premise of a web show in the Myers house could work, even though it isn't really big enough to be a proper, like, haunted house angle, but whatever. In theory, and as a piece of shit to make fun of with friends, I'd even go so far as to say, this is well worth your time. Between the awful stock characters and the outdated everything, it's kind of fun. Not quite what I'd define as a party movie, but give me enough weed and we'll see what happens. The kills, including a direct nod to Michael Powell's Peeping Tom, are an upgrade from the previous installment, and the redesigned Myers house is a spooky enough setting for the proceedings. I like the touch of the producers adding some superficial creep factor to the set design, and there's some very creative uses for the dinky-ass webcams everyone's wearing. Oh, and if we're going with the I like bad movies angle, Busta Rhymes is an absolute treasure. He and Tyra Banks just always turning away at the right moment so that the webcam angle works with the whole this is a fucking slasher movie premise is pretty fucking hilarious, and the last 25 minutes are a nice enough little slice of slasher action mixed with an earnest attempt at satirizing the audience. And yeah, that's all I got for positives. DP David Geddes was and still is predominantly a TV guy, and Rosenthal was basically in the same boat, and that is very apparent here. Just a total blech look all around, even without the webcams. I do like little touches here and there, like the difference in lighting between real Michael Myers and fake Michael Myers, but not much else stands out. Outside of the opening, it's not nearly as offensively bad as many have made it out to be, and it's certainly more respectable than Halloween 6, but man, we're just not given enough to care. Believe it or not, likable, well-written characters and a little artistry behind the camera go a long way. I'm not sure anyone involved with this movie thought the same, though. Also, does this count as blackface? In the end, the Myers Witch Project has the same problem as most of the post-Season of the Witch Halloween movies. It's just kinda there. Sure, it has some really good moments, they all do, but nothing to make up for a mostly drab production, lame story, and especially with these later films, little to no real voice. The need to give Myers a connection to the original, in this case his house, it's unnecessary. After killing Laurie, he should be free, allowed to finally spread his demonic wings and choose a new final girl to harass. But that's not how the Weinsteins and the Akkads saw things. I don't know. It feels like just years and years of spinning wheels, throwing ideas at the wall, and looking down on the horror genre. Out of all the major franchises, this has to be the most insulting and least rewatchable. Well, the purely theatrical franchises anyway. So yeah, here we are near the end of the series, and I gotta say, I'm kind of glad Scream Factory stopped at part 5. Oh, which by the way, where'd I put that piece of shit? Ooh, look at that. Ooh, look at that. Oh, look at that better mask on the cover. That's really nifty. Yeah. Oh, look at all these recycled special features. Cool. Honestly, I kind of wish the whole franchise just ended there. But fuckity nope! We've still got 4 more entries. Until then, go watch a movie. Cool. Fantastic. All right. Let's see how this looks.
I'll back up just a little bit. So what we're going to do, so you'll be here, yeah? Because I can't, like I said, I can't hear under this, so after we're just going to...
If I yell! Can you hear that?
Yeah, but you scare me. I gotta get a picture together with it.
More like that?
Hello? This is him. Oh yes, this is Drew.
All right. So when I say go, you're gonna let go, and Drew, I need you to fall out of frame as fast as you can without actually falling.
Yep.
Okay. All right. And make sure my focus doesn't suck ass. And go.